welcome back to another episode of the Crazy Stupid Marketing Show, the show where we talk about some of the crazy stupid things people do in marketing and how maybe they could not do those on an ongoing basis and instead spend their time doing meaningful ROI related things that marketing can be. If you're new to the show, we spend our time together talking about a lot of the things that people don't talk about in marketing. So when you Google things or you chat GPT things and you get a bunch of answers, these are the types of things where maybe those answers are not quite so simple. So I like to say we come here to open a can of worms on the topic of the day. And the topic for today is aligned audience experiences. And so from a marketing perspective, most of us at this point in the marketing adventure are using multiple channels of things. So whether that's multiple social media platforms, or you're doing some in-person networking and some virtual networking, or you're doing events and you also have a company page on LinkedIn. Almost all businesses have some kind of multi-channel experience that they're trying to create, that they're trying to manage. And at the end of the day, these things are being consumed by some different people and some of the same people. So today we're going to be talking about the aligned audience experience and what we need to know, the questions we need to ask, what is relevant, what's not relevant. And to do that today, I have my lovely friend Trista, who's going to join us in the conversation, who has tons of experience specifically in the digital space, but also merging some of the paid, organic, earned, and hey, showing up in person and creating an experience for people, experiences. So if you have come here live today, please let us know that you're here. And how do we know that you're here? By getting in the comments. So while we might have a lovely little ding, ding, ding that shows us how many people are watching, that does not tell us who is watching. So if you are here today, please hop in the chat, share with us that you're here, and share with us any perspectives, ideas, questions, insights, experiences that you yourself have had when it's come to creating an aligned audience experience or any kind of audience experience. Maybe you haven't even got to the aligned part yet. Maybe we just have questions about audience experience and what we need to know. That's awesome. So the more voices we can add into this conversation today, the more robust it will be for all of us. So I highly encourage you, no matter what your level of exposure to audience experiences before today, to share your perspective, because it is equally relevant and equally inspiring for the people who are watching. Okay, so why did I invite Trista to come on a show that's about aligned audience experience? Well, Trista has been on the show before. But Trista, I'd love for you to kind of reintroduce yourself to the audience and talk to us a little bit about why you're so passionate about creating aligned audience experiences for your clients.
Yeah, for sure. Well, my name is Trista, digital marketer, passionate digital marketer by trade. Also the CEO of For the Love of Marketing Now, which is a 5-year-old company that focuses on all things digital. So obviously having everything aligned just means a more effective digital marketing plan in the future for your strategies and executions. And so you can actually reach your goals. A lot of the gaps that we see when it comes to digital marketing is everything working in a silo. Kind of how you mentioned, Tracy, you got your Facebook here, your LinkedIn over here, but they're not really working together. They're working separate. And kind of the layers that go behind marketing, because that term is so diverse now. And there's so many components that go behind it. And there's a lot of thought that can also go behind, what might seem like a silly LinkedIn or Instagram post, but there's an overarching strategy and goal to it as well. But yeah, love marketing, love crazy, stupid marketing. I'm here for it. So yeah.
Well, to clarify, you love the show Crazy Stupid Marketing, not that people are doing crazy stupid marketing. Which is why people come on the show. So it makes sense. Okay, Trista, I'd like to, so there's something that came up in my head when we were talking about alignment and things being aligned. Well, let's take your example, right? You got a Facebook page and you got a LinkedIn page, but they don't really work together. not because they can't work together, but because it's not part of the plan for them to work together. And it made me think about employees. Right now, we hire employees, and we don't hire employees specifically so they don't work together. Right? We try to hire employees so they do work together, even if we're building like fractional teams and freelance teams and things like that. We try to build these things so that they're complementary to each other. So I know this is kind of outside of the conversation, which is where I love to go, you know that. But I'd love just your perspective on like, is this a culture thing? And if we see this manifesting in a marketing scenario, would you, I mean, we're guessing, right? And it's never true for 100% of people or companies, but like, would you, I don't know, can we assume that there's also kind of that mismatch happening from a corporate culture perspective?
Yeah, I would say definitely. You see that a lot too with their sales agents who market themselves, or who don't market themselves, to try to sell. They're not all working on a common goal and mission, and I feel like that can really shine through in the marketing. And when we're talking about making it all come together, you know, you've got your main hub that might be your corporate entity, that mission that you're working towards, and your employees should carry that forward within their marketing, even if they want to take it their own route and have their personal brand behind that as well. You can blend those two synergies, and especially working in real estate, you know, a lot of real estate agents have teams, and then their marketing is all disconnected and it's not pointing back to work towards a bigger goal, which is a lot of the problem, especially in the big corporate entities as well. There's that big disconnect for sure.
Yeah. And this is the thing I was thinking. And also, just I love to create these kinds of comparisons because I don't think anybody would intentionally like add a team member without understanding where in the team they plug in or what activities they're going to be doing. Yet I think people do this very often from a marketing perspective. And then they're like, oh my God, TikTok's the hot new thing. And I got to have a TikTok account. But we don't think about how does that work from a
Mhm.
cohesive experience? Because now, what if I have experienced you on Facebook and now I'm experiencing you on TikTok, and I'm like, what's up with this? This seems weird.
Yeah.
um, and so, like, I'd love to know from your perspective, because I know that your agency does a lot in trying to create this alignment. So, when somebody comes to you with a new channel or a new idea, what are some of the questions that you're sure to ask them to make sure that it becomes part of a strategy and not just a squirrel?
Yeah. Well, first of all, when you're talking about the advent of TikTok, it's if you're gonna do it, are you gonna commit to it?
Mm,
Because if it's something you're gonna open, you know, people usually start off guns a blazing, hot and heavy. They come in with a couple ideas and they're like, awesome, I'm gonna conquer it. But ultimately, if you don't commit to it, you're not gonna conquer it. And that inconsistency for your audience and being there for your audience is really gonna shine through. So if you're wanting to take that leap into newer platforms, especially ones that involve video, that involve more footwork, more ideation, more you in front of the camera, then you need to commit to the process and you need to commit to going video or going TikTok, to see the returns on your investment as well. You know, a lot of these platforms are oversaturated and loud. And the way that you can show up on the algorithms, but also show up for your community, is by being there consistently. And that is like the biggest theme when it comes to marketing, is just showing up every day, being there for your audience, providing them knowledge, providing them resources, educating them, and just always being there.
and Tristan, what would you say? Because I have my own interpretation of this, of course, because I have my own interpretation for everything. But when you're looking at that commitment, what, like, how might I know that I want to commit to TikTok, or that because I'm a big fan of like testing things, right? So I'm
Yeah.
always like, go and test and see what you like and see what you don't. So I think testing is part of the process, and you can elaborate on that if you agree. But also, like, where does that commitment actually come from?
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure it's not the internet telling you that this is the thing you should do.
Yeah, I think it comes from your goals. What are you trying to get out of it? And when you look at a marketing and a sales funnel, right? There's the awareness, the consideration, the conversion. Those are like your three general categories, obviously. Mix and match. People have different interpretations of that funnel. That's the gist. But like, what's your goal? Where does this platform help you in one of those three pillars of your goal to execute? And I think, like what you said too about trying and A/B testing, and that is huge for getting to understand, know your audience, and know how to convert them at those different stages as well. Of how do you get them from that awareness to considering you and then converting to you? And I think that's where different platforms come into play. And being on all of them allows for that base understanding of awareness. So then you can pull forward because video content is really good for that consideration and conversion because usually that consideration aspect requires a bit more education or a bit more of a dialogue or a conversation that you can't necessarily grab from a static imagery anymore. And so that's where different platforms come into play depending on your goals. But I totally agree that you have to test it. And what worked 3 months ago might not work today. And so you always have
What
to be
worked before COVID might not work anymore.
exactly. You have to, it's a fast moving world out there, and you got to be fast moving with it as well, or else you risk getting left behind. And disruption isn't scary if you're working with the disruption and if you're not scared of it and if you embrace it and want to work with it, then it's not disruption. It's just growth and growth of the industry and growth of marketing.
Okay, I want to talk about this for a second because it's
Yeah.
also a little bit off topic, but I love me a good tangent. The concept of growing with these things. So marketing, I think maybe more so than a lot of other industries, is really about growing and changing. And every 2 years there's a new platform. And like when I went to school, there wasn't even digital advertising, which is like crazy to me because it really wasn't that long ago. Like we didn't learn that in school. We learned about newspapers and magazine advertising, and some of those are still very relevant. I'm always surprised by the gusto of radio, like the number of people who still advertise on the radio and get an ROI for that. Like, good job, radio. But this idea that we need to grow and evolve, and that it's not, I loved what you said about that it's not a disruption if you're like disrupting with it, right? And you're rolling with it. And it kind of plays into Ali's asking a more tangential question, but Ali, I see you, and we will come to that. Is like, how important is this from a like person perspective, from a human perspective, to have that growth mindset? Because I mean, I don't think a marketing team has a growth mindset unless people on the team have like those individual growth mindsets.
Yeah, it comes back to what you were saying in the beginning. Is it a culture issue, and working like in that community themselves as the marketing team? What do you value? If innovation and growth is something that you value, then that's something that you will all work towards. But growth is multifaceted, and everyone looks at growth differently. And personal growth, company growth, client growth, I think they're all different. So it's tricky to give you a one definite answer when all the experiences are not the same.
And also not linear.
Yeah.
Right? I think we've been taught that growth is like a linear trajectory, but a friend of mine, Kira Day, always talks about how growth is a mosaic, right? And you add a piece here and you add a piece there, and then you build the picture on an ongoing basis, but the picture can change and evolve, and this side is dark and this side is light, and you build in all dimensions all at the same time. And again, it's like really interesting, especially when I look at this from a marketing perspective, because it makes me think of like an ecosystem in nature, right? Like it grows at different speeds at different times in different areas. And I think sometimes as humans, we try so hard to make this logical. And this is going to make sense. And I have the data and I'm going to do this. But there's only so much of life that happens that way while humans are creating stuff for humans.
Yeah, 100%. It's not binary. And, data can be a very good driving force, a great theory, a great foundational principle. But a lot of times when you put stuff in from theory into action, you don't see the responses you might be expecting. In theory, this campaign's great, but in reality, it's not turning out. We did
Right.
all this audience data, but why isn't it resonating with our audience? And you're right, it comes down to that human element. And I think you mentioned too in the beginning that to share your comments or ask your comments, because in a way we all are exposed to marketing, right? I believe it's by like the age of 4 the children can name more brands than they can animals. Like we're all
My son
exposed.
definitely can do.
Yeah, it's
May or may not have an impact on him that his mom is a marketer, but
I'm sure it helps. Surely it helps, right? um but we are all consumers, and we see what works for us personally, and looking from a marketing standpoint, that's great. And what's also really important to kind of emphasize there too is to not get stuck in the way you are consuming and the way you enjoy it. Industry specific as well. So if you're wanting to real estate agent, once again for example, you work really well and you can best service these group of people. So then you want to speak with that group of people. But if you're a product company and you want to reach a wide array of people, then you need to ensure that you aren't getting stuck in one way of consuming, and releasing that information. And that's where that data is important too, is to kind of reaffirm a bit, what you might be thinking and believing, and tweak from there.
Mhm. Okay, so I want to go to Ali's question because I want to go down the data track, but this one is not a data question. So we will answer this and then we will go down the data track. So Ali is asking, and we're going to look at this from a marketing team perspective, Ali, but this is going to be relevant for any team, I believe. How do you fix the problem when a team member causes issues that make it hard for everyone else to work together? And I wanted to bring this in because from a marketing perspective, I think there's two things that can be at play, right? So we're going to pretend a team member is a person in one scenario, and we're also going to pretend that a team member is a channel. So we are also going to look at this because I think because we have humans behind the scenes, it actually is the same thing. So let's imagine we have we'll do a people problem first, right? So we have a problem with our marketing coordinator. This marketing coordinator is making it hard for everybody else to work together. Although now that I read that, I think it's probably a marketing manager that's more likely the problem. Not to judge you, marketing managers who are watching, but in my experience, our lovely marketing coordinators are very good at doing, and it's generally in the where strategy meets tactics where we end up having a problem. But Trista, any advice for Ali on how we can address that?
Yeah, well, speaking from more of a business development and business owner side, usually the situation where the turmoil might be starting isn't the reason that they're upset or why there might be this contention. And to look at the individual who might be causing that disruption to the team, and take it out and look at the broader themes of why this might be occurring. And that why might not necessarily be rooted in the right now. That why might be rooted in the past, and something that might have come up along the way. So in the marketing process, is there a consistent disconnect or a consistent theme that might be impacting this individual, which is in turn causing this negative energy or affect on the team itself? I think looking at the broader contextual themes rather than looking at a case by case scenario, because usually it builds from something at the beginning. In my personal experience, anyways.
Yeah, and one of the words you mentioned quite a bit already, Trista, was goals. And I think this is also very relevant to this. And then if we are extrapolating that to this quote unquote team member, maybe is your website or your LinkedIn page or something like that. If we can come back to the goals and we can create from a space where we are all aligned on the goals, I think this is a really powerful place because we take out the personality to some degree and we say, hey, folks and platforms, we are all here to work towards this goal. And all of us we have different roles, and we have a different way we show up, and we have different personalities, we have different experiences that contribute to that goal. And we want all of that diversity of thought and everything. And the goal, we're still going here, right? And I think that, again, in my experience, that takes away the emotion a little bit, allows people to reset on something that we agree on. We agree that we're going towards this goal together. Okay, we might not agree on how we're going there, but that is where we create room for discussion. And it also, I mean, this is personally, I have had experiences before where I just feel like me and someone else on the team are not going towards the same place, right? So if we do that, we're going to go that way. And if we do this, we're going to go that way. And having that conversation about how you see this taking us there can add like a whole new layer of perspective to you that would allow you to kind of bridge that gap and be like, oh, well, maybe that's actually a good idea. Now, I also want to be fair. We talked a little bit about culture, and sometimes people are just a bad culture fit, right? I've seen it actually quite often with salespeople, because someone will be hired into a sales organization because they have X amount of years of experience in sales, but they have experience selling heavy equipment and not selling software. They struggle selling software, and then it ends up not working out. And that's not necessarily a great example because it's just based on experience. But when those types of things are all you're looking for in a hiring process, and then you have this team and you're like, wow, I don't have anybody who actually cares about marketing, right? Like, or cares about my brand. I have people who have video editing skills and graphic design skills, and they have skills, but we are not like, we didn't agree to go somewhere together. So now we're just like all over the place all the time. I think that's very common. So something also to look at, again, this show isn't specifically about HR, but something to look at in your hiring process, because from a marketing perspective, I want people who want to build relationships on my marketing team, right? If I'm going to say you are being hired into this marketing team, your job is to create aligned audience experiences. That's a different type of commitment than it is to say, like, your goal is to make pretty things with graphic design. I'm obviously simplifying graphic design. I'm terrible at graphic design. I only appreciate my graphic designer friends, but it gives you like, oh, this is why I'm on the team. I'm a graphic designer. I'm here to create aligned experiences. What does that look like? I want to make sure that branding matches across the website and my platforms and all of these things, and the vibe is the same. And then you can get somebody who cares about those things. And so I think hopefully, Ali, we have answered your question. And if not, we would love for you to send in a follow-up question. But while you do that, I want to go back to this data concept, because I do think marketing data has had a heyday for 15, 20 years now at this point, right? We've got a lot of data that we can collect about people. And the more that people are like willing to share for convenience, the more data we have. And so I want to take this back. We're talking about audience, right? And we're talking about, like, you mentioned these are the people, Trista, like these are the people I want to connect with. Oh, Ali, great. Thank you. We're glad we could answer your question. Let's talk about audience profile, right? And like, talk to me about the type of data that we can collect on our audience that's meaningful, and the type of data that we can collect on our audience that might be distracting.
Yeah. Once again, Tracy, that word is gonna come up. This is all depends on your goals. You're gonna want to use different data sets depending on your objectives, right? Like if you are looking for just brand awareness, then you're gonna be focusing on your impressions. You want to see how many eyes know your brand. Like that's the main goal when it comes to that first step in your funnel of awareness. And the tricky thing is when you're looking at building a brand or building a company or just getting the word out about it, is that awareness and brand focus. That's why when you're mentioning radio, Tracy, like radio and TV, as much as they're higher to produce now and actually harder to track who you're talking with, The whole objective is brand awareness, and getting the message out there to a large group of people. So in those instances, you cannot have those big datas, because it's very general and broad. You can have a rough idea of who's going to be watching TSN. You can pick and choose those platforms accordingly.
And a lot of the channels have like, between this time and this time, the listenership is this, and this is the general profile of the audience. And
yeah. And it also it comes down to your size of your company and what you're willing to put forth. But generally, a good rule of thumb, if you're starting out, is to understand who your target demographic is, so you can then better speak to them. So your target demographic consists of the basics, right? Like, what's their age, roughly what's a gender, and what's a rough location. What do they do? If you look at, I'm not sure if you've heard of the brand UFOS, but we're actually talking it. I'm in Harvard Business Online right now, and UFOS is a very big brand that we're talking about, up and coming in the recovery, and footwear industry. So they want to target people who are 55 years old, who might be experiencing pain or illness. And in that same vein, they're also wanting to target workout warriors. So people who are athletic and value being athletic and want to continue being in good shape. So they need a recovery shoe so they can be active longer. Those are two very different groups. You're going to target someone who has chronic illness and someone who's young and plays their sports all the time very differently. But you need to understand their mindset and what they're thinking and what they're going through. Because if you can't speak to them, then it's useless putting it on a site in front of them, because your ad itself is not even going to be speaking to them. So the big data sets go into more so knowing your consumer, and understanding their pain problem and how what you are providing can give them a solution. That is the foundation. If you don't even know how to create a visual or a story or a video to speak to them, then there's no point of knowing what platform is best to put it on, because your message isn't going to even hit them, right?
it's something that's really interesting to me, because one of the things I love to play with brands is, where do these seemingly very different groups align? Like, what do they align on? And how does that match your like core why or business values, right? So it's interesting that we're talking about this today, because I am currently in a phase of life where I am watching my grandparents deteriorate very quickly. They have not been physically active for years, and that is why that is happening. And so I have this obsession with like, what can I do with my health right now so that when I'm 85 I can still walk. This is what I want to be able to do. And it's really interesting, because then it's like I have this awareness, and then so things like this just present themselves, which are like, we did not plan that today, folks. That is, I've been listening on audiobook to the book Mastering Uncertainty, and they were just talking about luck surface area, right? And how you share more, then your luck surface area increases, and you get to find more solutions. But I've almost always found, now this isn't necessarily from like a targeting or especially digital targeting perspective, but I've always found that there's something that aligns all the people here. And one of the things I love to look at from a branding perspective is Apple, right? Because Apple's, while they might specifically target younger consumers, there's still a lot of older consumers who want to buy their products. So while I'm targeting one group, doesn't necessarily mean that I'm saying people outside of that group can't buy this or can't join the community or be a part of innovation, right? I'm just saying I can only, and like, let's be honest, folks, if anybody has marketing resources, it's Apple, right? And companies that are in the billions of dollars in terms of their market cap. But even they only target like one target. So I wanted to like if you can continue using your same example, Trista, but like, what are the values in having like a primary market versus a secondary market? But then also, how do you align the narrative so that I can kind of talk to everybody, but still mostly talking to you?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, aligning under that common goal. Geez, Tracy, that's gonna be a a key word in this.
How many times? Okay, so go back and watch this episode, and if you like drinking games, take a shot every time Krista says goal.
Oh my goodness. I'm sorry guys in advance for that one then. But it's aligning under the purpose as well. You look at UFOs and it's to give people relief so that they can get back to doing what they love. People who are active runners and who run marathons, they take these rest days where they don't really do much because they're in pain and they need that relief, but they want to go out and they want to be active and they want to participate and do what they love. And the shoe has a technology in them where it absorbs 37% more of that pressure for when you're walking, which is really, really cool. But
We're
that
gonna talk more about this after because I might be
we could
interested.
totally talk more about it. And then that aligns also with the 55-plus-year-old category who also want to get back on their feet and into their life and stop letting their illnesses or their injuries dictate their life. They want to reclaim it. Just as much as that runner wants to reclaim it after that marathon, they want to keep walking. They want to reclaim it after an injury or an illness. So it's about
And as amateur athletes, want to imagine that we're still professional athletes, even though we're retired.
Exactly. You're right. Like how do you speak to all of them, because they can get into the restaurant business as well, people who are on their feet all the time. But it comes
Nurses, hospital staff.
yeah, you name it. These are all people that are in need of a recovery shoe, but recovery as a shoe brand or as like a shoe category is very new. So education has to start there. Multiple forms within that funnel to get people to convert. But I think overarching, if you're going into a category, there's a reason why you're going into it. And it's probably because your original category did really, really well, and an idea has stemmed from there. It's probably not coming way out of left field. They're probably not going to go into highlighters for some random reason. It's related. It's related to the original project and original goal. So as long as you can, in short, kind of summarize what connects them in a memorable, impactful way, then it's going to resonate with an audience and will allow for that aligned goals to happen. Take a shot.
Okay, I'm just imagining me doing my daily walk in these shoes, but we'll save that for later when we're off here. Okay, so let's take this back to aligned, right? Because I want to talk about who we are aligning with.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times in marketing, we talk about our target audience, right? And it's they, and we are here to find them and do this for them. And it's very much a they activity. But alignment by nature is got two parties involved with it. So there is a me as the business. So, I mean, if you're a realtor, you might be a solo, you might be a team, but there's like the you component, and then there's the people component. And I like to look at alignment as the us component. So now it's not actually just me talking at you. It's not just me listening to you, right? It's us doing a thing. And so I'd love to hear from the targeting perspective how you've seen, or again, like questions you ask people that allow them to create that us experience.
Yeah, and I think that's a really great question, because when you originally ask people why they might be in the field that they're doing, or why they're working in real estate or marketing, you hear a lot of the reasons for themselves, which is really great. That's going to be why you're in it. You love the flexibility the job offers you. You love that you can work on the fly, whatever it might be. But that's your
I always think realtors drive really nice cars. So it's just like, I really want a job where I can drive a nice car.
Yeah, that's because that's their office. They live out of
I don't know that I can do that, but
that's
they
fair.
do have nice cars.
They do. This is very true. But their why comes down to why they're maybe doing it on maybe a more of a superficial level in a way. But like, why are you doing it a bit deeper? Like, let's pull the layers back and let's explore that a bit more. And what's your greater goal? And what are you trying to achieve? Why are you working in this niche? And being able to articulate that is really powerful, and it is not easy. Which is why a lot of people don't always do it effectively. Your why has to resonate with your audience, but also your team. So that's extra hard. How do you get it to work for your target audience, but also the people that are executing it who aren't realtors, they're marketers. And what's their passion? And why a lot of realtors, for example, a lot of consistent themes that we hear is they want to impact their community. They want to help people fulfill their dreams. They literally help people find their dream homes. And we want to help people help people. That's how we're involved. We're changing communities one realtor at a time. And realtors want to change their own community. So we're all working together on a common goal. We're not just your marketing team. We're there for your community as well. So it's a common goal that can be shared on both sides. That makes a really powerful why statement or a you believe statement for your company. But it's definitely not an easy pursuit, and it involves a little bit of deeper digging.
I mean, I don't know why I would be surprised that Trista's answer was goal. But I think this is also a really good way to look at alignment, right? It's a little bit different than I phrased it, but if we're looking at alignment as a common goal, I think from a marketing perspective, and now I look at like bigger organizations like the Cokes and the Pepsis and the Nikes and things of the world, although I think there's big brands who do it very well as well, is that we got removed from the common goal somehow, right? And now we're a marketing team who's responsible for creating social media content and for hosting events or coordinating events and creating event experiences, which I should actually do an episode on because people do it terribly. Yeah, I have a lot to say on that. But you're doing these things, you're writing blog posts, creating content, updating websites, right? There's a lot of things that we do, but if we haven't really explored like why am I doing that and what's the value towards that common goal? And have we even bothered to create a common goal? Or if we just said, this is our brand voice, and this is this, and this is this, and this is us. Right? And then this is our target audience. This is us and this is them. But we actually haven't created that merge point where we're saying we have a common goal and we want our team to show up as champions of that common goal. We want our clients to show up as champions of that common goal, right? Like there will be people, this is actually realtors is a really great example here because in any given market, there's multiple realtors, right? No matter how small your market is, there's at least two of them that you can choose between. And people choose one, I always think, that feels like it matches you, right? Like the way this person does business is the way I want to do business. And so we can work together and like, God bless my realtor who worked with us for 4 years and our like perfect house. And now we have it. But like there were lots of opportunities along the way for her brand experience and my brand experience to not be aligned. Literally, we worked for 4 years to do this. So when I'm thinking about like aligned audience experiences, this is also a thing that comes into play, right? This is how I would do things as the audience. And you as the service provider or the business or the product are saying, this is the way we do stuff. And it gives people the opportunity to say like, oh, hey, yeah, we are the same. Right? You give people the opportunity to create a common goal, even if you didn't create a common goal. You're creating the opportunity for that, but only when you reveal enough of who you are as a business and why you are a business and the types of clients that you want to work with. Not just that, like, I want somebody who will buy this. Okay. We need to go deeper there, friends. This is not quite going to cut it. Okay, so we've talked a lot about the alignment and we've talked a lot about goals. So now I want to kind of branch this out back into our assumption that we are doing things in multiple areas, and perhaps you have multiple team members who are then responsible for different areas. And one of the things that you had mentioned to me, Trista, off air when we were planning our topic for today was talking about like paid and organic and earned media. And I do think that these are generally arenas in which like there are different people who know more or have expertise in those arenas. So from your experience, what are some of those things we can take from our common goals or we can take from those alignment conversations that allow those areas that could very easily be disconnected stay connected?
Yeah. I mean, when we're looking at anybody and building out their brand and getting everything kickstarted, the main point of disalignment is their website. Um,
Oh, we
website
also
is
need to do a website of.
yeah, a website isn't a build it and they will come situation. It's not a one
You
and
heard
done.
it here first, folks. Can you
Um,
say it one more time again for the people in the back, Trista?
yes, it's not a build it and they will come. It needs some love, it needs some care, and updates, and it needs to reflect you and who you are, how you do it, and why you do it. And that's if that main hub is disconnected, everything else from it is also going to be disconnected. The message on every platform and every channel you use needs to be clear. That message aligns with your team, it's going to align with your audience, and that's going to tell people why they're going to work with you over the other person who's offering something maybe similar, especially in the world of real estate, right?
Right.
That's how you differentiate
I'm
yourself.
going to help you buy a house or sell a house
Yeah, and
at
and
the
you
end
know,
of the day.
and if you want to get into organic and paid media, this is your starting point as your hub. So if it's not functioning, these other pillars are not going to be working and it's going to be ineffective. So that's a big step that we see looked over, skimmed, and skipped.
Mm.
So I like to talk about Chipotle actually. Um, Chipotle, I've actually never eaten at Chipotle. I need to get to the States or something and try it out. But I love their branding. You go on to their value section and it is so clear. Like what they're wanting, they want to change the world with food and they do it by being real. And what does
Okay, I just want to stop here and like dig into this quickly because I think a lot of times people would be like, well, who cares about that for a fast food brand, right? Like, do you have values on your, I'm sure all of them have values on their website somewhere, but there's another one I always think of in the food industry is Chick-fil-A. Okay. Like Chick-fil-A is closed on Sundays because it believes Sundays is a day of rest.
Mhm.
And like in any other fast food business would be like, what are you nuts? Closed on Sundays? Most people eat out on Sundays. What are you talking about? That's like real value commitment. But I'd love to ask, just while you're using this as an example, Trista, like what about those values resonate with you in a way that makes you want to eat at Chipotle?
Yeah. Well, people align with brands that they also believe in and that they can understand their commitment and their desire to what they might be working towards. So Chipotle's desire to be real is done through multiple ways. It's real through real ingredients. If you're wanting a fast and quick and easy solution that isn't garbage, then maybe a place that has real ingredients is better for you. A company that is wanting real change for the environment. We're seeing the shift in consumers that they want to align with brands and they're actually willing to pay a premium to work with brands who stand for something meaningful and something more than their organization in themselves, which is why that why is so important and resonates with people because we're all human, right? And our brain is broken down into different sections. When you love someone, and you try to tell them why you love them, you're like, oh, you're nice, you're funny. Those are the words that come to define, even though you know it's more than that. You can't articulate that. So when we are reading and we're consuming and we're listening, stuff is resonating with us in our why. And is it your limbic or your neocortex? I can't remember which one's inside and which one's out.
If any of my brain friends happen to be listening, please clarify in the chat
Um,
because I don't know.
It starts, we'll just call this your why, your why one. It all starts here. And it resonates with you. And as you're looking to go through that purchase or go through that buying decision, you're looking for ways to justify what you're feeling, which is where those tangible elements of success come in. The technology that they use, how does Chipotle get their food? Like, okay, you believe in their mission, you believe in the environment, but now what are the tangible affects to that, and how is that coming to fruition and coming to life? And that's what Apple does differently than Samsung. They deliver their value proposition differently. Instead of selling you on their cool camera features, they sell you on their why of being innovative and being at the forefront. And then here's how we do it, by having these, instead of where Samsung typically tends to come in on their features end. And here are the features that make us really good. But people can always compete with you when you're doing features or pricing. Someone can always have more or be better, which is why having your why you do it is strong, because people will buy into that more than the fancy bells and whistles that are associated.
Mm. And you make a really great point there too, Trista, about the choice factor for consumers, because I mean, especially, let's look at digital technology solutions for a second, because the barrier to entry in a lot of these areas is very low. And I use email marketing platforms as an example all the time, because I don't even know how many there are. There's a lot, and there's people still making more, right? Like, there's always some new email marketing, and the email marketing platforms have existed 20 years at least, right? Maybe longer. So these the concept is not new, right? The features have mostly been done, right? So if you're going to compete in that arena, or digital creation services is another one where I see like a lot of price competition. They'll just be like, I can create an app for you for $20 an hour. I can create an app for you for 19. Now we're just in a race to the bottom, folks. And like, I mean, you can play that game, but I don't recommend that you play that game if you want a financially viable business. But you got to go one deeper on the humanness, right? And give somebody something to align with you on, whether it's like from an entrepreneurial perspective. I love when people talk about nerd stuff, right? It's like, I got a map of Middle Earth behind me, right? Like, I love nerd things, and we can go somewhere with that if I know that you also like nerd things. But I also like other things too, right? Like, I'm a mom, I went to university, I drink tea, not coffee. I like to hang out in the mountains, right? Like, there's lots of things as a human that from a marketing perspective, we don't necessarily think about. And I'm not saying like, I'm going to target women in their 30s who love the mountains. You're like, good luck finding the data on that to actually target on that. But the point is that as part of your narrative, as part of your conversation, you give people things that they can align with you on. And you don't just write your values on your website, which is like the minimum viable thing you can do, but you show people how you live by those values, and you create customer experiences then that also match those values. I want to touch on this because I think, again, a lot of times people are like, "Oh, marketing, it sits over here in its silo and it does things." But to me, what marketing does is make a brand promise that if you come and do business with us, this is what it will feel like. It will feel like we're taking care of you. It will feel like you're part of a community. It will feel like yada, yada, yada. And I think this is coming up for me because I've had a week of terrible customer experiences that are boggling my mind from like luxury brands, which just like makes me angry. But if marketing is acting as a silo, then we create the opportunity for that brand promise to be almost immediately broken. If marketing is not working with sales, a sales rep could come and just like blow out that entire experience that marketing worked to create. Customer experience is similar, operations is similar, delivery is similar if you're in an industry where you deliver product. Right? All of these things are experiences. And while predominantly we're talking about marketing experiences here today, let's ask Trista instead of me just making statements. Trista, what are your thoughts on being able to like take what we created in marketing and kind of permeate that through the rest of the organization.
Yeah. It's obviously, as you're bringing up, it's key. If sales doesn't understand what's happening on the deliverable aspects, then they overpromise and then people underdeliver. There's that disconnection, and marketing is sales and sales is marketing. It's the lines are very blurred now. But and having that all interconnect is so important, for getting everyone on the same page. But having it all on the different touch points. You talk about how you're acting, and how you're going through it, and making sure that everybody knows wherever you're kind of going, or where the brand is existing, that that is something that's true. If it's living on only one entity or one platform, and you really live by it and preach on it on Instagram, and then you get on LinkedIn and you forget about it, what does that kind of say about you and your brand as well a bit? And that's how that your employees can then feel that disconnect too, because they're reading and they're consuming your content as well. It pops up on their feeds, or they're connected and they're following it. So the marketing is not only for your clientele, it's also for your team, to keep getting behind that mission day in and day out.
Mm-hmm. And I think with you, I think these like hard definitions of especially sales and marketing in the digital environment are just, they need to be erased. It's not helpful anymore. It's just like creating more complexity. So let's erase them and readjust that. But at the end of the day, I'm thinking about this from like a corporate story perspective, right? Like we are here to do a thing as a business, and the marketing team contributes this and the sales team contributes this, and come back to the common goal thing, right? We know as a business our common goal here. I know what I need to do to reach that goal. You know what you need to do to reach that goal. And I let you do what you are good at, and you let me do what I am good at. And we work together to reach the common goal, which again, if we are not reaching, there's something that needs to be readjusted. And I would encourage you not to just straight go for the goal that needs to be adjusted, but maybe some of the other things that are not contributing to reaching that goal. I've been on teams where they just like change the goal to be like, we reached something. Not really, because you just changed the goal with like 3 weeks left in the quarter to say we reached it. This is not, we didn't reach the original goal. We should talk about why we didn't reach the original goal. Was the original goal out to lunch? There's a lot of goals that are completely out to lunch. We should check our ego and say like, okay, yeah, I made that up and it wasn't close. Right? So we didn't reach it. That's fine. But when we all know that, and then this comes into the story, but then it's bigger than that, right? Like it's in your hiring processes, and it's in how your teams interrelate with each other, and it's how employees go home and talk to their spouse about work today, and it's like it's all of those things. And it might seem like we've kind of, well, like we were talking about aligned marketing experiences. These are all marketing experiences. Every time someone hears about your company, whether it's from a disgruntled spouse or on your website that's not plugged into anything, or on a random TikTok video that they stumbled across, doesn't matter. It's an experience.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're not asking those questions about how are we, and or how much do we care about creating an aligned audience experience, it's not one of those things that will just magically manifest for you. It needs to be intentional. Is it Trista? Last thoughts, because we're
Yeah,
almost out of time.
for sure. And it's not an easy experience. It's easy, once again, one of those things in theory, but if you're not aligned from the beginning, then you're not going to be aligned in your execution throughout the whole process. And you look at these big companies who are guilty of it as well. So don't get yourself discouraged through it. I'm not sure if anyone remembers Five Gum. It's still around, but not as much as it was in the past. But Five Gum had marketing campaigns back to back, and it's like their whole marketing team wasn't aligned on their goals and objectives. They were trying too many things without actually understanding what they were trying to do. And they went over and they filmed these really impactful, heartwarming videos of someone, I believe it was from China, whose biggest life regret was not leaving China. And it was all focused on biggest life regrets. And this is where the idea of social media sounds silly. But after they released that video, their very next post, is a very raunchy truth or dare gum asking about where you want to hook up and where your favorite place to do the deed is. So what is that saying about your brand when you're bringing forth these two very different things right back to back, even though it might just be a silly Instagram post?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man. Okay. So for those of you who are watching that and then like, how can I come up with good experiments? We did a show about thinking like a marketing scientist. It was a while back, but we talked all about like marketing experience and hypotheses and how to create them and all of that. So feel free to go back in the YouTube library and find that one, because there was tons of great stuff about what to test and how to not test too much stuff at one time and all of those things. So, but again, like that to me, Trista, just feels like throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks. And like, I don't even know, based on those two diverse things, like one of them I would feel like very aligned with, and one of them I would feel like very misaligned with. And so my our negative experiences from a human perspective tend to weigh more heavily than positive experiences. So while I might have been aligned with this one, I'm like really not aligned with this one. And so like now I'm out, right? Like I forgot about the alignment that I had. And that is not, I'm not going to say that experience of a human like opting out of being alignment with your brand is bad, because that is what will happen for every single brand. It's what I mean, I'm not an Apple user, and I use Apple as an example all the time because I'm not their ideal target. It doesn't matter to them that I am not an Apple user, right? And and it's fine. The disconnection is part of the process. But when you create and you test based on like, this is who we are and this is what we want people to know about us in the market, then when people disconnect with you, you're like, oh, these people don't care about like taking care of people, so yeah, no, I don't really want to be friends with you anyway. But if you're just throwing stuff at the wall and it's not rooted in your why and your values, then it's risky. So let's learn from Five Gum. We can learn a lot of things from failing, which is why we have a show called The Crazy Stupid Marketing Show. If we didn't have crazy stupid stuff to learn from, then we would
Life would be no fun.
That's true. It would be boring. And though I do think a lot of times people think it would be easier if there was just one way to do it and we all did it the same way. It's just not, right? Like we wouldn't have all the fun, we wouldn't have all that connection, we wouldn't have variety, we wouldn't have options. And I think most of us like those things. And so we embrace that in our marketing, and we are not too short-sighted to say like, this is just this and that's all it is. Then we have the opportunity to create wonderfully aligned audience experiences.
Well said.
Boom. I always bring it around somehow. You never know what might happen, but it does happen. Trista, if people are interested, so especially any realtors who might be interested, where is the best place for people to find you?
Yeah, I love LinkedIn. All things LinkedIn. Everything else is connected from there on out, but LinkedIn's the best place to chat with me.
Awesome. And Trista is tagged in this post, so you can just click on her name and it'll take you right to her profile. Send her a connection request, tell her that you saw her on the show. I'm sure she'll be happy to connect with you and have lovely conversations like this. I always enjoy our conversations so much, Trista. I love your energy. I love how you think. And one of the things I appreciate about you is that you are always asking questions, you are always learning, you are always growing, which is a wonderful thing for yourself as an expert, also a wonderful thing for the clients who work with you. So I want to thank you for your time joining us for the show today and sharing all of your wonderful expertise. I want to thank everybody who was not in the comments, but I see you that you are watching. I want to thank Ali for asking really great questions that gave us an opportunity to explore from a different perspective than we thought we were going to today. So thank you so much for that. And if you are watching and you're like, oh, there's this thing I've always been wondering about marketing, please message me. We would be happy to do a show about it and add some new perspective that maybe didn't exist before, that could allow you to have a new insight that could actually be helpful for you. This is our goal of the show, is to provide new perspectives, helpful ideas, so that we can do the things that are not crazy and stupid marketing. So with that, everybody, thank you so much for joining us today. We will see you next week. And until then, permission to do you.
Awesome.